Hey guys, welcome back to the real Mr.Beer, Mr.Beer's own Twitch channel, right here on Twitch TV. My name is Josh Ratliff. I am a Bjcp certified beer judge. I'm the brewmaster here at Mr.Beer, and I'm also the manager at Everything Homebrew, our little homebrew shop we have on site here. Today we're going to be talking about how to enter your beers into competition. So I'm going to be going through the Bjcp, which is called the Beer Judge Certification Program. I'm sure many of our regular customers who have gone onto our website and looked at our recipes will see a category at the bottom, usually under the IBUs, ABV, and all that says Bjcp, and it'll have a category and a subcategory. This is from the Beer Judge Certification Program style guidelines. And the reason why we put that on there is so that you have a guideline so you know which category you're going to be entering your beer in if you are entering any competitions. So first thing I'm going to go through is the Bjcp itself. What is it? Well, it's the Beer Judge Certification Program, and it's intended to encourage knowledge, the understanding and appreciation of the world's diverse beer, mead, and cider styles. So it's not just relegated to beer. You can also be a mead judge or a cider judge as well. You can have those endorsements on your judging certification. The Bjcp is also to promote, recognize, and advance beer, mead, and cider tasting, evaluation, and communication skills, and develop standardized tools, methods, and processes for the structured evaluation, ranking, and feedback of mead, cider, and beer. So understanding the Bjcp program and how judges judge your beer that you're entering in competition will really help you gain an edge in entering your competitions, especially when you're really trying to do stylistically correct beers. You're going to know after this show what the judges are looking for in regards to look, aroma, flavor, mouthfeel, overall impressions, etc. Bjcp was founded in 1985 and has administered the beer judge examination to over 11,000 people. Currently there are about 7,300 judges in the US. About 880 of them hold the rank of national judge or higher. So I'm going to start getting into the ranks. So first thing, when you're entering a competition, and actually if you want to click on that Bjcp link there, you can go over and check out the web page, and you should be able to still hear me in the background. So you start out with an entrance exam. It's $10 to take. It's 200 questions, and it's going to cover everything from the styles of beer, like particular styles. It'll also cover homebrewing processes. So a beer judge really should understand homebrewing as well as just tasting beer. Your average beer connoisseur that loves beer but has no idea about the processes of brewing probably won't make a good judge until they learn some of those things, because when you're judging beers, you need to be able to give valuable feedback to the brewers as well, and especially if they have some off flavors or certain faults in the beer, you should be able to give them some kind of feedback that'll help them make a better beer next time. So after you take the entrance exam, you become a provisional judge. And you can judge, in fact, you can judge at Bjcp events, most of them, without being a judge. You'll be considered a non-Bjcp judge. You'll be paired with a Bjcp judge, and you can still earn judging points that are retroactive. If you become a judge, you can get those put on your record from past judging events. So that's pretty cool. You can start getting on it and start practicing the judging before you even take the entrance exam. Now, if you do take the entrance exam, to become a recognized judge, which is the first rank, which is what I am. I actually have my 5 points now, so I should become certified this year, which is the next rank. So after you take the entrance exam, you have to take a tasting exam, which is about $40 depending on where you're at. Typically the local homebrew club in your area will facilitate it. I usually have to go up to Phoenix from Tucson to take it, and basically it's going to be 4 or 5 beers in a flight, and you have to evaluate each one. You get 15 minutes for each beer to evaluate it, and there's a lot of really important things to understand, such as there's a lot of things that judges will grade you on, such as completeness, like are you filling out all the fields, or are you just putting one word descriptors. You need to be really complete, concise. Tell the brewer exactly everything you're experiencing with the beer. So completeness, and then there's your accuracy. So when you're doing your tasting exam, there's going to be proctor judges that are doing the same exam. They're filling out the same sheets and everything. And then once you're graded, they're going to grade your sheets against their sheets, how accurate you were in the descriptions and in the scoring. So there's going to be accuracy for scoring, descriptions, and a few other things. So becoming a BJCP judge is quite the endeavor. You do have to understand the BJCP style guidelines. If Matt can go ahead and put that link up. The link Matt's going to put up it'll be a PDF that opens up into the BJCP style guidelines. And now I have mine open here. You can also purchase a book of the guidelines if you want to have a hard copy. Otherwise, I use a handy app on my phone, and it's just called 2015 BJCP Guidelines in the App Store, Google App Store, and it's free and it's pretty awesome. You can click your category, and then you'll have a subcategory, and then you can scroll through all these. So the guidelines are set up. I'm going to start with one of the first ones on the guidelines here, which is going to be, I believe, American Pale Lagers. Scroll down here. And keep in mind, you want the 2015 style guidelines, not the 2008 style guidelines. They are quite different. They do update them every few years. So starting at the first one, Standard American Beer. So number one, that's the category for Standard American Beers, which will include subcategories such as American Light Lagers, American Lager, Cream Ale, American Wheat Beer. And so it's going to start out with overall impression, aroma, appearance, flavor, mouthfeel, comments, and history, characteristic ingredients, style comparison, comparing to other styles. Obviously, vital statistics such as the IBU range it should be in, SRM it should be in, the OG, FG, ABV, all that fun stuff. Commercial examples, which this is one great thing that's on here that I really like, is when you're studying for the BJCP tests and you're trying to understand some of these beers styles that you're not too familiar with, these commercial examples are a really great way to, go to your local store and try to pick up one that's under that list if they have them. There are a few commercial examples that are kind of difficult to get, but these are just a really great guideline for that. And then it's going to kind of translate over to the sheets. So I'm going to show you what the sheets look like. These are actually the old sheets. And as you can see, this one is filled out already. This was from the the Arizona Spring Classic. This was for my lemon pepper saison, which I got a score of 42 out of 50, which is pretty good. I'm quite proud of it. Got a bronze medal for this beer. But these are the old sheets. These are the ones that they're going to test you on when you take the entrance or the tasting exam. And so these are going to be full paragraphs pretty much. So these are the ones where you write the most on. They've updated the sheets for the National Homebrew Competition and for much larger competitions where you have a lot of flights to go through. You may not have the time to fill out a big sheet like that for every single beer. It does get tiring on your hand. So they made these newer sheets, which are a little bit more streamlined. So it's mostly you place a little X or check mark along the areas, and then you can add some comments in the lines. Of course, it is good to be complete and not do like one-word comments. You want to give the brewer as much information as possible about that beer. And I really do like these sheets. I'm really glad they switched to these. And all these sheets, the BJCP guidelines, again, that can all be downloaded online. So once you pass your entrance exam, if you get a score of, I believe it's 60 or better, I could be wrong on that, you get recognized certification. If you get certified or better, you can become certified, or I'm sorry, 70 or better, you become certified rank, but you still need to get 5 points to get that certified rank. Otherwise, you're still going to be recognized. To get points is through judging. Typically, each judging event will give you 1 point. So when you get 5 points, if you're a recognized judge, then you'll have enough to advance to certified. But you will still have to take the test to get that certified rank. Once you get past 80 points on that test, and I believe you have 10 judging points, then you qualify for another exam. It's a written exam, and that's for national rank judge. Like I said, there's about 880 nationally ranked judges in the country. Beyond that, there's, let me get over here to the ranks. There's beyond national judge, there's a grandmaster judge, and these are typically judges who also volunteer within the BJCP. They're the ones that are proctors for entrance exams. They do also do grading for the entrance exam, proctors for the tasting exam. Sorry, I got confused there. And they do have a program for scorers, or for people for people scoring the sheet, so that they can find out if they're going to be a judge or not. And I think you have to be a national rank to be able to become a scorer. So yeah, and when you're taking the entrance exam, I mean, you have to know all the workings of the BJCP as well. It's not just the beers you're tasting or homebrewing knowledge. You need to understand the BJCP also. So it's really good to go through this website, understand how the ranking works, and how the points work and everything like that. It does get a little convoluted at times, but once you get the basics down, it's pretty easy to get through. And I'm going to check over here, see if anybody has any questions yet. We ain't got nothing so far, but okay. So even if you don't want to become a judge, this information is really crucial if you want to enter your beer into competition. And don't be intimidated by people who brew all grain and enter beers into competition, because even if you're doing a Mr.Beer kit, you still have a chance of getting good scores and really good feedback and possibly even winning. We had one customer posted on our forums. He got high 30s or low 40s, I believe, for our You'll Love This Ale, one of our Christmas winter warmers. And that's, I mean, you know, for an extract batch going up against all grain batches, that's a pretty commendable score. So you can take one of our Mr.Beer recipes or kits and add some grains or some hops, or, you know, you brew it, and if it tastes really amazing to you and to your friends, it may impress the judges as well. Okay, so I'm going to go through the process of how a judge judges your beer so that you understand where you might need to work on your beer here and there, or the parts of the components of the beer that you really should be focusing on. And Scaldy says, what the F is this? Oh, we're talking about BJCP and entering competitions with your beer. Welcome to the chat, Scaldy. Hophead Hardware, I judged a competition that I organized over the weekend. Second place winner was an extract beer. Yeah, exactly. Don't be intimidated by the all grainers, because you can make just as good beer with extract. Trust me. Okay, so first thing I'm gonna show you on here. It starts out with Aroma. I don't know why it's blacked out on there. It's just the way it printed out. First thing you're gonna do, you're gonna see a little thing, bottle inspection. Okay. Now this is really kind of not really that important, but a judge is gonna check the bottle for rings. If there's any kind of rings around there, that could indicate an infection, and that could be deducted off of your overall score. Depends on the judge, really. If it's overfilled, they may write overfilled. That could be deducted as well, probably a point or two. So it might be important just to make sure you have a really good fill. This is an excellent fill right here, about an inch and a half from the top. If I was judging this, I would check mark okay, looks great. Second thing you're going to do, and the reason why Aroma is at the very top is because that's the first thing you're going to judge. The reason for this is because the aroma dissipates quickly. As soon as you pour it, that aroma will start to dissipate. So we went in and opened it, checking the carbonation, make sure it's not going to be a gusher or anything. It has happened before. But trust me, I've had gushers in competition that still got high scores. So first thing you're going to do is pour it, and you're not going to pour it off on the side like you would, you know, pouring a pint. You pour it straight in from the bottom up. This helps create a little bit of head retention. Damn, that glass is a bit dirty. Sorry about that, guys. Did not rinse it out enough. That's why all the bubbles on the side are. You know your glass is too dirty if that happens. Anyway, you want that head retention to build up. And then, you know, you want to cover it, give it a little swirl, and give it a really nice sniff. You can either do a really long draw, or you can do several smaller ones. Depends on how you feel it the most. The Aroma is a pretty high score, so there's 50 points overall in Bjcp, and 12 of those points are all Aroma. As you can see on appearance below that, that only accounts for 3 points. So appearance isn't really that big of an issue. If you have a lager that's a little bit more hazy than it should be, they might give you a 1 or 2. That's not a lot off your points, but keep in mind that overall impression, the very last one, 10 points, they could still deduct from that if it's too much. If it's like really hazy or looks like a Hefeweizen but it's supposed to be a Pilsner, I would not only score that a 1, I would also deduct off the overall points, probably 2 or 3 points. Scaldy says, could I throw some random shit into my beer like seasoning or spice? Absolutely. You can put whatever you want in it as long as it tastes good. And as long as you understand how to do it properly so that you don't overdo it, because you can really overspice a beer easily. Okay, so the next part, after appearance, and what you're going to be looking for in appearance is the color, the clarity, and again, you're going to be going to your guidelines. That's why I like to have it on my phone when I'm judging, so I can go to that particular style if I'm not that familiar with it, and see what all the guidelines are. Now keep in mind, when you're taking the tasting exam, it's closed book. You don't have the Bjcp guidelines with you, so it's really difficult, and you have to judge within 15 minutes, each beer in 15 minutes, so it can be kind of stressful, especially your first go round. So you're going to be looking at the color, the clarity, the head, if it's going to be like white or if it's dark, and then the head retention. That's how long the head lasts, and if there's really good lacing or not. And then the texture of the head. Sometimes it'll be creamy, rocky, really big bubbles, which can be kind of a bad sign. You might deduct points off of that as well. Depends on the style. The next part of the sheet is going to be flavor, and this is going to be your biggest 20 out of 50. That's your biggest points, obviously, because that's why you're drinking beer in the first place, is for the flavor. And it's going to be broken down, just like Aroma is broken down in between malt. Are you smelling or tasting certain malts? The hops, are they going to be really low, medium, or really hoppy? Are they spicy, earthy, fruity, etc.? Fermentation on these, on Aroma and flavor, what that means is esters, any esters, off flavors that could have come from the yeast, things like that. If it's like a high on fermentation, that would be probably like a Saison or something that's really estery, or a Hefeweizen that'll have those really estery flavors. And by the way, if you want to know more about esters, phenols, and off flavors to be looking for, check out last week's video. We did a show all on off flavors, contaminations, infections, how to identify them, and how to prevent them. And that pretty much ties in with today's show, because these are the kind of things that judges are looking for. Flavor is going to have your malt, hops, and then bitterness. Fermentation, which again is those esters, or if it's really clean fermentation. Then your balance, between hoppy and malty, and then your finish, aftertaste, whether it's sweet or dry, if it lingers or whatever. And again, you want to fill out all of these lines afterwards too. Each line corresponds to the component in front of it. And then mouthfeel is going to be, obviously your body, the amount of carbonation, the warmth. If it's going to be warming, you can taste the alcohol or feel the alcohol, or if it's really clean tasting and easily, thirst quenching almost, so there's no warming. Creaminess of the beer, any astringency, things like that. And then your overall, it's going to have some lines here, whether it's classic example, not to style, if it's flawless or significant flaws. And then the bottom line here is basically your personal view of it, if it's wonderful, lifeless, or somewhere in between. And again, this bottom paragraph is going to be your overall impressions and what the brewer may need to do to improve their beer next time if it turned out to have heavy flaws in it. And speaking of flaws, over here on the left, they will mark whether it has certain flaws that are either outside of the style. You'll do an L, an M, or an H for low, medium, or high, depending on the beer. And then, of course, the scoring guide down here at the bottom. So that tells you exactly what your score is going to be. 45 to 50 is the highest you can get. That's considered a world-class example of the style. That's what people are usually shooting for. I got a 42 on my Saison, which would be in the realm of excellent, exemplifies style well, requires minor fine-tuning. So beer judging is really fun. It's a really great way to grow appreciation for beers. When you're doing judging, typically they'll ask you which styles you don't want to judge, which ones you do want to judge. So you do have a little bit of control over what you can taste. I usually go for everything though, because I like to learn more about the styles as I'm judging, and I go through the guidelines and I look for all the things it tells me to look for, and then I judge it based on that. Judging can be difficult, however, because you sometimes have to set aside your personal preference for the beer in favor of the stylistic guidelines for the beer. For example, last year in Minneapolis, I judged at the National Homebrew Competition final round, and I was in the Pale Ale, American Pale Ale category, and one of the Pale Ales, which happened to be my favorite one out of the whole flight, I scored the lowest. And this was because it was a bit estery, it was kind of peppery and spicy, and it was very dry, and it really reminded me more of a Saison. Now, as a big fan of Saisons, I really liked the beer. I thought it tasted excellent, but it was completely outside of the style for that particular category. And what I had wrote on the sheet for the brewer was that, it's excellent tasting beer, but stylistically it was most likely miscategorized. Scully says, so I could grind up some fermented egg and throw it in? Would the bits cause me to lose marks? Sure, you could do that, and yes, it would cause you to lose marks, absolutely. I don't know how well fermented egg. That's going to have a lot of bacteria. You might have a really nice sour at the end of that. That'd be weird. Okay. Moving on, let me go ahead and... This is going to be a pretty short episode, guys, because I just wanted to run through the style guidelines so you guys can understand. And again, off flavors, you're going to be looking for those as a judge. The grader program, that's what I was talking about. Grader training program, if you wanted to grade some of the entrance exams. Again, I think you got to be a national judge for that. Sensory kits. So if you are wanting to become a judge, there's really great ways to practice. There's a few different companies that sell sensory kits, which are basically different off flavors in a little vial that you add to a neutral beer. I know one of the beers that the Bjcp recommends is like Amstel, because it's not as most American lagers kind of have that little acetaldehyde taste to it. It's kind of an off flavor, but it's okay for that style. Amstel and a few other like European style kind of lagers tend to be more neutral. So those are really great for the sensory kits. You can get them through Siebel Institute out of Chicago sells them. The Bjcp also sells them, and the Cicerone program sells them as well. They're pretty expensive. They can be around $100 per kit, but it lasts for several different. I mean, you could do a whole class with them. There's quite a bit in there, and so it'll contain usually a little bit of acetaldehyde. It'll have some SO2, some sulfur, or like some phenols, different things like that. There are also sensory classes. If you don't want to buy a sensory kit, I would talk to your local homebrew club or local homebrew supply store. They may have sensory development classes where they use sensory kits to help you find off flavors and recognize them. But again, just practicing, you will be able to grow your palate, and you may even grow it beyond just liking IPAs. Because I know that's the big thing. A lot of people, I just love IPAs, or I only love dark beer. Expand your palate. Don't be such a beer snob. Get out there, taste all of these beers. Try to build an appreciation for them if you can. I'm still not a big fan of barley wines personally. They're a little bit too big, a little too sweet for me. But I have had some really great examples, and I do have an appreciation for the style. With that said, anyone have any more questions about entering competitions? And I'll go in a little more about entering competitions too, if nobody has questions. Okay, so Bjcp does not only we don't just do homebrew competitions, we also do professional brewing competitions. For example, we just had a Baja Beer Fest here a while back, and we did the Mr.Beer hosts a lot of the Bjcp sanctioned competitions here in Tucson now, and that was basically an IPA competition among a lot of the local breweries. So they get a lot of good feedback too, and those are fun competitions because you know their beer's already really good, whereas homebrew sometimes it's, you never know what you're gonna get. I've had some really bad ones. Okay, so when you're entering your beer, typically you're gonna enter usually 2 to 3 12-ounce bottles, so you don't have to make a whole lot to enter your beer. They're gonna have you put little sheets that you'll print out from the competition online. They'll have little sheets you print out. You're gonna rubber band it around your bottle. One trick is to actually put the sheet inside of a Ziploc bag and then rubber band it. That way, if one of your beers breaks in transit, you'll still have that sheet. It won't be ruined, so you'll know which beer it was, or they'll know which beer it was, so they can have you send another one. And then typically, depending, like the National Homebrew Competition, you're going to send 2 beers, and then I believe the last final round, if you make it to the final round, you'll send 3 beers in because it's a really big competition. A lot of brewers. Scully says, "My grandmother died of alcohol poisoning." I'm sorry to hear that, man. That always sucks. Okay, so shipping your beer. Typically, when you're doing local competitions, they'll usually have drop-off points, so you don't have to ship it. In many cases, it's going to either be a brewery or your local homebrew supply store. When you're doing things like National Homebrew Competition or competition out of state or out of your city, shipping is going to be kind of iffy. It's a pretty gray area, but you really want to try to ship with UPS. They've been the one that I ship with. It's not illegal technically to ship through them, but they do discourage it. So just don't say on the package that it's a beer. Put like yeast samples or something. They're not going to ask. Don't ship through the United States Postal Service. It is illegal to ship alcohol through them, and you can get fined for it. Usually it'll just be a warning, but just avoid all that and stick with UPS for shipping your beers to competitions. And with that, I think that's about it. I don't think I'm missing anything. Oh yeah, I guess I should show you some of the swag you get. If you do become a beer judge, you get this fancy little pin, which you gotta earn. This is my recognized pin, hoping to get this certified soon. And you also get a little card. You can either get like the one with the pin, or I got the one with the lanyard. So yeah, that's pretty cool, and it's just a lot of fun. Beer judging is a lot of fun. But even if you don't want to be a beer judge, just understanding the Bjcp and looking at the guidelines, which also really helps you kind of when you're making a beer too. In fact, that's how I design most of our beers on our website, is through those guidelines. I try to stay within those styles. There are going to be times where you're not sure exactly where you want to enter your beer, which category you're going to enter your beer. The really popular Hazy IPAs, for example, they don't have a set style in the Bjcp guidelines. So they're not recognized by the Bjcp. However, you can enter the IPA category, and they do have a subcategory called Specialty IPA, and that's where the Hazy IPAs go. Hazy Pale Ales, that can be a little different. Typically just in a pale ale, but you'll want to say that it's a hazy New England style pale ale. Also, sour beers can be kind of difficult. Sometimes you don't know where to enter it. Let's say Saison, for example. I actually had a little bit of difficulty wondering if I should put my lemon pepper Saison in fruited beer or spiced beer, or just keep it in Saison. Now, if you look at the guidelines, the Saison says that you can add spices. And so I wouldn't put it in fruit beer, because even though it has lemon in it, it's not the actual lemon, it's the zest. And that would be considered a spice and not a fruit in the Bjcp guidelines. But when you look at the actual Saison category, it does say that spices are allowed as long as they don't overwhelm the character of the yeast. And drinking my lemon pepper Saison, you can absolutely tell it's a Saison. The Saison yeast character is there. So that's how I entered it. And I guess it was a good spot because I got 42 out of 50. So. Scaldy, she had 2 beers in a liver filled. Her last words were "smell my finger." Okay, buddy. All right, so yeah, it's a lot of fun to do. If you're interested in doing it, I recommend checking it out. It's only $10 for the entrance exam. The tasting exam is $40, but I do recommend a good, at least 3 to 6 months really training yourself before hitting that the tasting exam. And then this is not to be confused with a Cicerone. A Cicerone is not a beer judge. They're more of a sommelier for wine. And I might go over a Cicerone program another time. I'll probably even try to bring my good friend Andy in here. He's one of 8 certified Cicerones here in Tucson, and have him talk a little bit more about the program. I'm rank 1, but I'm working to get my rank 2 possibly in November. Cicerone is pretty difficult to get. It's more expensive. It's almost $400 for the test, but it's not as difficult as the Bjcp entrance and tasting exams. Those are the most difficult exams. I've had people who have PhDs say that it was harder than their PhD dissertation, things like that. So it can be difficult, but don't let that discourage you. You just have to have a love for beer, a love for the process. It's a great way to meet people. It's a great way to connect with your local clubs, things like that. And just knowing the stuff, like I said, even if you're not a judge, it's great to know so that you know what the judges are looking for when you're entering your beers into these competitions. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out for the day. And Scully says, I'm going to subscribe, start making beer tomorrow. Can't wait. Awesome. Yeah, hit that subscribe button on the top there. You can subscribe for free if you have Amazon Prime. Just link it with your Twitch, and you'll get Twitch Prime, and then you'll get one free channel subscription every month. And you can also gift subscriptions or pay for a subscription, which is only $5. Any money that you put into our channel, whether it's subscriptions or donations, those go to the Southern Arizona Humane Society. We don't take we don't monetize this channel in any way. We just want to teach you guys how to brew beer. With that, I want to thank you guys for joining us. Tim will be back on Tuesday with some more stuff, and I'll probably be back on Wednesday. I'm not sure exactly what I'll talk about. Probably get back into brewing some things. So yeah, we'll probably do that. And thanks again, guys, for joining us, and we will see you all next week. Cheers.